Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another edition of our webinar series, Inside Immigration. Today, we're joined by panelists at Green and Spiegel, Shoshana Green and Sonia Sidhu. Please feel free to ask any questions via the pop-up text bar on the right side of your screen, and we'll do our best to address the questions at the end of the webinar. If the panelists do not get to your question, you can contact them through the information provided on screen now. And with that being said, I'm going to hand things over to our panelists.
Hi, good morning. So first we'll start off with the postgraduate work permit extension announcement. So it was announced by RCC that in mid-June, former international students in Canada on postgraduate work permits, whether they're expired or expiring between January 2022 to December 31st, 2022, would be able to extend their work permits for an additional 18 months. Not much has been released on this, so we still have to wait and see what the government comes out in terms of what the policy considerations are. But if we were to take this and read a little bit into what this short message says, it seems as though if you've taken part in the policy for extension previously, you won't qualify. It's backwards looking, so even if your work permit is expired on or before after January 31st, 2022, you can apply for a new extension. And you need to be in Canada. But there is one critical group that has not been considered in this policy that is to be announced still. It's the individuals whose work permits expired after November 27th, when the old policy finished, till when the new policy is going to come into effect. Now, IRCC has been told about this group, so we're hoping that once the new policy comes out, that this group of students is taken into account and that there'll be a smoother flow over in extending the work permits for them.
Yeah, it's a very unfortunate thing that the government has failed to give details here, because there's a lot of students who are expiring right now on their post-grad work permits, who were former students, and they're left in a bit of a lurch because they're here, they know this new program's starting, you know, maybe in a few weeks, a month, who knows. The government's term is the summer, so specific, but unfortunately, those individuals will have to get a little creative when it comes to protecting themselves and trying to extend their status. Hopefully we get these details soon and we can give better guidance. And hopefully those individuals who've been expiring right now and in the last month or 2 or 3 or 4, basically back till January, can somehow benefit from this policy. I mean, I think the government wants to help these students, but practically they don't have the tools right now to facilitate assisting these students. And it's very frustrating from our perspective, because we want, you know, these students are, you know, they've been told, come to Canada, study, you know, graduate, and then you'll have a path to permanent residence. But we're going to talk about the PR in the future here under the permanent side. But just on the temporary side, it's really challenging, but we hope we'll get more information soon, and we hope that you know, we'll be able to assist. But in the meantime, we are trying to help these individuals who are expiring right now, can't benefit from the new policy because the policy isn't in effect yet, but hopefully we'll be able to bridge that that gap with those individuals. And hopefully, as Sonia said, those individuals who from November to January have been forgotten, but maybe they'll be remembered in the next few weeks.
Yeah. So working from home guidelines, I mean, there's a lot to be determined here. We're in an area where we haven't been in before, so the government really needs to come up to par with what working from home means for temporary foreign workers. In the pandemic, it was okay for them to work from home, but apparently with the government's perspective, that is no longer the case. So when you apply for work permits, there's locations, conditions put on, there's issues with compliance, inspections. So if you are on a temporary foreign work permit, you need to be careful if you're fully working from home, or if you're working in a different province or territory, which actually creates more issues. So if you do have these work permits, you need to be very careful that you are following the rules and the obligations that are imposed upon you in terms of location.
Right, and then that also falls onto the employer side, because if the employers are bringing foreign workers in and they indicated to the immigration department that you do have a physical space, but then you change your mind and now you're virtual, these things may come back when it comes to a compliance inspection, where employers have to explain the situation. I mean, from the government's perspective, if you're working virtually, why do you have to be here in Canada? That's kind of their pushback on it. So it's a bit of a balance, but it is a new reality, which hopefully will get some guidelines coming in the future. But right now, it doesn't look like the immigration department has really caught up to the current trend of hybrid work situations and working from home, which so many employers have shifted to, and so many employees have shifted to. So we'll see what happens. Stay tuned on that. Hopefully, as time goes on, the department will catch up with reality and deal with these situations, which are very, very real for many foreign workers. And hoping for the best here. We'll see some policies that will support that employment reality for workers, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes immigration just needs a refresher of where we are in reality versus what the laws and policies they have in place. So these issues have been raised, and hopefully we do hear something sooner rather than later. The next topic, quick and easy, Trdpr pathway work permits. There was a happy update at the end of April for individuals who had spouses overseas under this category. They're able to apply for open spousal work permits while the application is in process. I mean, this really lines up with family reunification, and also on the not so happy side, it's clearly because these files are taking a lot longer to process than they had originally anticipated, but at least the families aren't separated in different countries.
Yes, there's some improvement. Okay, I think we're going to flip to the permanent side now. Express entry draws. Here's another fun one from the government. They've announced they're going to restart draws for federal skilled workers and Canadian experience class applicants. And this one is in the summer too. We don't exactly know when. We don't know what the magic numbers will be. We know there's a lot of people in the pools just waiting to be invited to the party, and we hope, we don't know if they're going to target occupations. There's a lot we don't know, other than it should be reopening. The minister has announced that, these draws will start again. But in the meantime, the draws have been consistently those supported by nomination certificates through the provinces. So obviously the scores have been very high, in the 700s, I think, to account for the 600 bonus points that an individual receives with respect to getting nominated by the province through their specific express entry program. So the combination of allowing, the students to extend their status with this new pilot program for extending postgraduate work permits where they hadn't in the past other than the COVID one. So round number 2 for the extensions, combination of that will hopefully allow these students, which I touched on that, to be able to transition to permanent residence, hopefully. And for a lot of the, high skilled workers who came through intercompany transfers and who came through labor market impact assessments, there's a lot of individuals in Canada waiting to get into the express entry system and apply for permanent residence. So it'll be interesting to see how the government deals with these rounds of invitations in the future, which is in the very, very near future, hopefully. But in the meantime, just sit tight, hang in there, and hopefully, people will start getting invited. That's what I would have to say about it. You want to add anything on that, Sonia?
Yeah, just one piece of advice, like don't sit there and not put yourself in the profile, because there's no advice. If you qualify, put yourself in the profile, your profile in, because you don't know when an invite's going to happen, and you don't want to miss your chances, or you don't want to get stuck in a tie-breaking rule. So if you have the same score as someone else, but they submitted their profile a week before yours, and you're the tiebreaker, you're not going to get invited even though you meet the cutoff. So don't sit idle, just get yourself in there and wait to see what happens.
And the other thing I want to mention, because people may have been sitting in the the online system for quite some time, double check on your expiry dates for your language tests. Double check, you know, that's a 2-year window for your language test, and double check for your education credential evaluation. That's a 5-year window. Just make sure everything is current. And if you have an opportunity, you know, people have had time to improve on their language test. That's pretty much the only thing that you have control over is your language test results. So if you've got room for improvement, sign yourself up, take a new test, and hopefully you can improve on that score, because in my opinion, every single point will count in the future here, because it's going to be highly competitive and we just don't know how high these scores are going to be. So give yourself the best chance of success. Give yourself an opportunity to maximize your points, not only for yourself, but for your spouse. We want to remind everyone that you're not looked at individually. If you're a family, you're looked at as a unit, and that both you and your partner, your spouse, make sure everything is valid in there. Make sure you're maximizing every point you can. And remember that as time goes on, you're losing points for your age if you're 30 and older. So just be aware of those things, because that's what it's your responsibility. So take it on, and I'll be here to help if you need that advice.
Yeah, and if you've changed jobs, make sure you go in there, update your profile. Don't let it sit idle. Ontario OINP updates and draws while the provincial election is underway. So the OINP office has temporarily stopped updating their website to let us know when there's notifications of interest or invitations to apply. Keep in mind, they're still issuing them, so make sure you're logging into your profiles and checking to see if you have an invite or a notification. We have had clients that do not get the emails to say hey, there's an update on your profile, and there may be an invite in there, like there's tight deadline for the OINP, 14 days. So just constantly go in and check. Don't rely on the website to tell you when there has been a draw.
Yeah. I mean, the OINP has been sort of the only one that has been working for those individuals who don't have the nominations through express entry. So if you have yourself in a situation where your employer wants to potentially assist with your immigration, here's the chance. Put profiles up, and if you do meet the criteria either through the student stream or the job offer stream, give yourself a fighting chance to get permanent residence. And that's an option, but it's not a reliable option, but it's available. If all of these are, kind of discretionary when they open and close. So if you want to maximize your opportunities, and if you fit the potential criteria for the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program, try it out, give it a chance. Okay.
Yeah, okay, so PR fee increase. There has been an increase at the end of April for permanent resident fees under the economic, family, humanitarian classes. I mean, it was a slight increase, like for permanent resident fee from 500 to 515. This increase, they said, is to adjust to inflation. They have also announced that they're going to be automatically adjusting these fees every 2 years. So if you are at the point where you're ready to submit your file, just double check the fees, make sure you've paid the correct fees, because you don't want your file sent back to you a couple months later saying, hey, you didn't pay the right fees, try again.
Yeah, I mean, they love reasons to return applications. And here's a simple one. If you send the wrong fees, unfortunately, they generally don't give you a call or send you an email saying, can you send us the difference, the $15 difference? So don't let them have that excuse. Make sure you take on that responsibility and ensure that, it sounds ridiculous, but it's happened. So just be aware of it.
Yeah, okay. I mean, just other short issues, portal issues, processing times. Portal issues is a very live issue. There's apparently 16 IRCC portals out there. So if you're applying online, just make sure you're using the right portal. You can still submit paper applications in certain circumstances. With the portal, it tends to go down or there's glitches. So one piece of advice is don't wait till the last minute to submit your application. Give yourself some time that you're not stuck in a situation where, hey, you're expiring today and you're trying to get in the file and the portal's not working. Especially on Friday afternoons, the portal usually goes down. We were seeing issues with first come, first in, first out applications. So we were saying that sometimes applications that were submitted after were receiving acknowledgements of receipt prior to someone that was submitted before. These issues IRCC is aware of, and they are working on it to make sure they're back to the first in, first out basis for applications. Eventually, IRCC said that they will try to consolidate all the portals into one, but it's not going to happen overnight. These take a lot of work. So continue to make sure you do everything you have to do correctly in the portal and in the right portal so you don't have issues with your application.
Good advice. Do it in the right portal. Good
Yeah.
one.
I mean, and then
Go ahead.
sorry, yeah, in processing times, I mean, this is a very hot topic. It's processing times have increased. IRCC has finally updated their website to outline the new processing times. Go online, check if you have a pending application, what the processing times are. If your file falls abnormally out of those processing times, I mean, it might be best to get advice, see what options you have to push your file forward, try to get a decision. Just don't sit idle and say, okay, well, eventually a decision will come. So many things could have happened on the file that you're not aware of. So it's always good to seek the advice and see what you can do to get a decision on your file.
Yeah, with the portals, with, sometimes applications go in the wrong place, the wrong offices get them. It's really frustrating, but sometimes we can sort of try and find the particular file that may be sitting there and push it along. Ultimately, behind all these decisions, well, the majority of them, there is a person. A lot of them are these bots making decisions, sadly. But there are humans behind these processes, and ultimately, I think the Immigration Department wants to do the right thing. They want to process you. They want to make good, solid decisions on applications, and they're trying. We've had some challenges over the last few years, obviously, but the department is trying to get back on track. And from a processing time, some things are getting back to normal and improving, and some things are sort of randomly bizarre processing times, because a lot of it, as they are done through these portals, the staff supporting those applications can be anywhere in the world because they have access to them digitally. And because of that, you don't really know where your application is being processed, but we can try and find it, hopefully. So we're going to end on a happy note that things are going to hopefully get better in the near future. And it's challenging practicing immigration law these days because you sort of need a computer science background to deal with all the technical aspects of it. But ultimately, immigration, there are rules here, and we hold the department accountable to the rules, and that's what those services that we offer. We want to make our clients have successful outcomes, and that's what we're going to continue to try and do and work with the Immigration Department. Okay, so there's just a few questions here. An individual is asking about Bill C-19 changing the way that candidates are selected for express entry. None of that has come into operation. It's not policy right now. Nothing has changed with how the department is selecting candidates through express entry. For now, it's the same system. There's no new changes, so hopefully you'll be able to, unless they come out with something, but practically speaking, nothing has changed. And then, Sonia, the other one is about Quebec, which, has there been any change with how candidates are selected? Only recently there's been a change with Quebec with, if you do have a CSQ, you can get a work permit now overseas. I think that just came out yesterday or the day before. That's the only update I'm aware of as far as Quebec at this time. Sonia, you have anything on that?
I mean, the PR files are taking a really long time to get any decisions. You have the certificate from Quebec, you have applied for PR. It's just a waiting game. Like we said, the processing times are very long, and they go without contact for a very, very long time. But if you see you're outside, so go online, check the processing time. If you see you're outside those processing times, then seek advice.
Yeah, and who knows who's going to immigrate to Quebec anymore who doesn't speak English with the new language laws that were announced yesterday. The Anglophone community is ready to move. So we'll see what happens. we will see. I think that's, we're good at this time, Stephen.
Yeah, so that's all the time we have for today, folks. So I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. And a special thanks to you, Shoshana and Sonia, for sharing your expert knowledge today. For anyone in the audience, if you'd like to discuss today's topics in more detail, please reach out and book a consultation. You can find Shoshana and Sonia's contact information on screen now. I'd also encourage everyone to sign up to our alerts and follow us on social media to stay up to date with the latest developments inside Canadian immigration. Until next time, everybody, stay safe.
Bye.
Bye-bye.